Sip. Pinkies up. Don't slurp. Etiquette.
Did you ever have to do like an etiquette dinner at school? Like where you laid out all the forks and shit?
No, I don't think I've ever been to a formal dinner that was formal enough to where like it had like a chilled salad fork and like a.
Yeah.
I've been to like fancier dinners where they put out all the silverware and make it look nice, but I don't think I've ever been to like a formal dinner ever. Where there's like courses and somebody, you use a fork to eat your salad, and then that special chilled fork is taken away and another fork is brought back for your meal. I don't think I've ever had that before.
You need to do it in like elementary school or some shit. They taught us.
Oh, the formal eating stuff. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's like not really all that useful anymore, but I think it's interesting. I just think that dining has become a lot less formal over the years.
Yeah.
I think like the formal dining thing was reflective of something that's still true, but it's just loosened over time. Is like that food has always been like this massive center to people's lives and stuff. And so we came up with all these little rituals around it and stuff. It's interesting. Thanks for the 413 pan boss. 413. It's a very specific number. Haven't hopped on in a while. I used to watch you guys on DP all the time before the schism. Cool. Well, welcome back. Hello. The schism, dude. I love that.
You should check out the 5-hour onion nuggets they did.
Oh, yeah.
Wednesday.
That's true. We did do a 5-hour long onion nugget. Yeah, you should definitely check out Deep Fat Fried. If it's been a while, you're an old fan of DP, you ain't checked in on us for a while, you definitely give Deep Fat Fried a look. You might end up liking it. But if you don't, we're solo streamers too. You can come hang out here anytime you want. Would you rather only be able to eat flavorless gruel over the rest of your life, or only be able to listen to Corey Feldman music for the rest of your life? I'm telling you, dude, like, as much as I love food, I think the flavorless gruel would probably, like, help me get healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas I think listening to Corey Feldman's music exclusively for the rest of my life would help me the other way. It would make me unhealthy. So I'll go with the food. I'll eat the weird Matrix paste so that I can listen to normal food. Because, I get the feeling that, like, the mental damage that would be done by having to listen to Corey Feldman every day would way outstrip any kind of, like, sadness I have about food.
I mean, we ate flavorless gruel last night, basically.
Kinda. I mean, it's got flavor. It's just not food flavors. It's cardboardy. You'll take the gruel, please? Yeah. I think most people would probably take the gruel in that situation. Like, the idea that, like, music has just disappeared from your life, even though food is more important, like, to your survival, I think people probably prioritize their music more than their food. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I know I do.
I'm the opposite. Like, I don't listen to it as much as you do, just ambiently, so I could just not listen to music. Oh, D. Dinor, quiet. Hey, quiet.
What's your problem? Shh. Chill out.
You're gonna go in.
You'll go inside if you keep it up.
Yep, you're going in.
Yeah, he didn't say that gruel was free. He said that you can keep eating, but it has to be this gruel. So it wasn't like free food. You have to pay for the gruel. You have to, order out the gruel.
Fix it.
Fix the gruel or whatever. Go shopping for the gruel.
Yeah, see, I'm on the opposite with you. I want food that tastes like food.
I don't blame you. It's not an easy. I would definitely probably, like, regret it. Hey, go on. Go. Psst, psst, psst. Go lay down. Sit here and whine. The gruel magically repels seasoning. Yeah, yeah. It's like you could pour a whole fucking pound of salt in it, and it just gets absorbed, neutralized into the gruel.
That's how some people are with COVID now. Some people still haven't regained their taste buds yet and shit.
From what I've read, it's like not that they can't taste anything; it's that flavors are not like they used to be. Like they have a harder time distinguishing between little bits of flavor, and like it's like dulled their ability to taste things really. So, kind of made the mistake of watching a Voosh video this morning. We were talking yesterday about his hardcore focus on this Ukraine thing, and when I popped open my app, there he was saying PragerU's video on the Ukraine crisis is pretty bad.
Another Gravel Institute.
Gravel Institute. Sorry. So I was like, okay. Usually the Gravel Institute is pretty good. Let's see what problems there are. And I watched about 8 minutes of a 41-minute video, and he was utterly, unabashedly, and completely dead ass wrong at least 4 times in that 8 minutes. He starts off the video by saying that there is no proxy war in Ukraine, that you cannot have a proxy war if you don't have troops on the ground, which is absolutely like the opposite of a proxy war. That's an actual war. When you have your troops on the ground, you have a non-proxy war. When you have no troops on the ground, but you're supporting a separatist element within another country, that's a proxy war. So he literally starts the video by saying that Ukraine is not a proxy war site. Then, about a minute later, is called out by his chat, and instead of going like, oh, I was wrong, recontextualizes what he meant by proxy war, and is still wrong. What else did he go on to? There were like 4 separate things.
He said that the Soviet Union wasn't communist.
Said that the Soviet Union wasn't a communist entity. It was a state capitalist entity, ignoring the fact that state capitalism is an aspect of communism. He said that, what was it? That,
oh yeah, they said that this one, like, nationalist was a hero in Ukraine. He's like, no, it's not. And, like, he was literally named, like, a hero in Ukraine.
I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was talking about this nationalist Ukrainian separatist figure
that allied
with the Nazis, who is still a national hero in Ukraine. And the Gravel Institute was covering this to show the etymology of the white nationalist movement in Ukraine. And he was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that, he's not a hero in Ukraine, when he is. They have a statue for him. They made him a literal hero of the Republic or whatever the fuck. So he ended up being wrong about that. He goes Hot Take City, talking about how, like, Azov, that was his name. He goes Hot Take City, talking about how Azov, oh, no. There's probably like a little group of racists that like him, but that's like saying that Adolf Hitler is a hero in the United States because there's people here. And then, like, literally 10 seconds later in the video, PragerU says, they actually made Azov a hero of the Ukrainian people. And here's his statue. And he's just left with his, like, pants completely around his ankles. And has the effrontery to plow forward after that completely wrong take. PragerU shows a line graph, or sorry, I get them mixed up. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't. Gravel Institute shows a line graph showing the GDP of Ukraine prior to leaving Russia, and how it cratered after the Soviet Union broke up, and how it never reached back up there. And he just straight out just goes like, I don't think that's true. I've read that there's been remarkable recovery in the Ukraine because this one is interesting because this has to be so in order for him to justify the United States intervening. Ukraine is much better off since it's been away from Russia. Well, not really. Not for the average person. But that has to be true in order for you to justify American military intervention in the Ukraine. We're saving these people who just want their freedom. So there's 4 times, we're talking about 8 minutes into this video, 4 times that he was not just like, oh, your take is a little off. Wrong, 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 wrong. There's been no remarkable recovery in the Ukraine since it cratered after the USSR. There's Azov is still worshipped as a national hero, and there are tons of white nationalists in the Ukraine currently being supported by the United States. And Ukraine is a huge proxy war site between the United States and Russia.
And the Soviet Union was
And the Soviet Union was a communist country. 4 times in 8 minutes, completely dead ass wrong. Hot take city, doo-wah diddy. I couldn't watch anymore. I got 8 minutes in and I was like, I can't do this no more. And I'm not even a fucking expert in that part of the world. I'm not a geopolitical expert or a Ukrainian expert, but I just kind of like lived through that time and know a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's like he's forgetting that there's 92 was not that long ago. 30 years ago.
So the Soviet Union wasn't communist. They don't like Azov in the Ukraine, and there is no genuine white nationalist movement. It's basically the same thing as the Nazi movement in the United States. It's a small group of people. Wrong. Ukraine is not the site of a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Absolutely dead ass fucking wrong. Provably, demonstrably wrong. And tried to recontextualize what a proxy war was by saying that a proxy war is a real war. A proxy war is, it can't be a proxy. The United States can't have a proxy war in Ukraine because they have no troops there. Number one, that's wrong. We have a military base, at least one, in the Ukraine. Number two, that's not a prerequisite for a proxy war. In fact, that's actually like rare in a proxy war. A proxy war is when one entity arms the rebels and one entity arms the sitting government or something like that. One entity arms an entity that's against the government or pro-government. That's a proxy war. So Russia arms pro-Russian separatists. We arm the white nationalist separatists. We're having a proxy war.
Oh, and he mentioned like, oh yeah, and he was saying that Antifa didn't or integrate into the BLM movement.
Right. He was saying that would be like saying that Antifa, I can't even remember what it was, but he was wrong about that too. Because it ended up being exactly what happened. Antifa took the BLM protests and showed up at them so much that they earned a seat at the table at those protests and actually became a huge part of that movement. And that's exactly what happened with these white nationalists in Ukraine. And he doesn't see the direct parallel. It's crazy. You don't get Vosh's staunch pro-war stance. You don't. He's a lib. All libs are staunchly pro-war.
That one's just empty.
It never reached where it was. That it wasn't that it dropped and didn't recover a little bit. It's that it never reached, the GDP never reached the level that it was when it was with the Soviet Union. It never recovered as a country from the separatist movement. That was the whole point. Not that there wasn't some kind of a bounce back from the very fucking tank bottom, but that the Ukrainian people were never as well off in their own country as when they were a part of the Soviet Union.
And he's trying to minimize the fact that a bunch of people in Ukraine want to go back to Russia because they were Russians for a good portion of their lives.
Yep. D is wild and out. That's not D.
Nor does not bark like that.
Nope. Ironic because Vosh just had a massive liberal purge from his subreddit. Was he purging people who were against the war in the Ukraine and calling them liberals because of it, while being a super liberal himself? I just don't get it, man. I literally I can't even imagine being wrong 4 times in 8 minutes, being called out on it, and then leaving that conversation thinking I'd been correct up until that point so far. And that's exactly, like, you can watch it happen. You can watch him be wrong, watch him be called out in his chat for being wrong, and then watch him recontextualize what he had just said to make it seem like he might have been right.
He said at the beginning that he doesn't know that much about Ukraine, but he thinks he knows more than the Gravel Institute.
Yeah. I don't know much about Ukraine, but he knows more about the Gravel Institute. He knows enough to do a 41-minute takedown of the Gravel Institute's
12-minute video.
12-minute video on the Ukraine. But he doesn't know much about Ukraine, but he's got 41 minutes of bad takes to give you on the Ukraine. This is what I'm talking about. It's not okay anymore for people to just go like, man, I really don't know what's going on there. You got to have a take. You got to have a hot take. You got to hit the presses immediately. And that leads to people who are well respected saying things that are demonstrably, provably false. I don't know. I really don't know much about the Ukraine, but here's 41 minutes of me being wrong about the Ukraine.
Well, it's like the Democrats liked the Gravel Institute during the 2020 election because they were against Trump. But as soon as that was over, then they turned on the Gravel Institute and called them like, oh, they're just trying to secretly turn all the Democrats into Republicans.
Yep. I just don't understand why looking up data is so frowned upon during debates. Just look it up real time if necessary. He actually did that.
But,
so he started with this take because the Gravel Institute showed the line graph that showed the cratering of the Ukrainian economy and how it never recovered. And he was like, I'm pretty sure that this is completely and utterly wrong. In fact, from what I've heard, Ukraine has had a miraculous recovery. Let me go look into this. And he goes and finds another graph from another site and puts them side by side, and they line up exactly. And he's like, okay, all right, I guess, that's interesting. Well, I'm still right about this, though.
Yeah, he tries to recontextualize it again. It's like, well, it's because of the Russians. That's why they haven't recovered.
And it's like, the because doesn't matter. Like, honestly, maybe it is because of the Russians that they never recovered. The because doesn't matter. They never recovered. It's just, I can't even imagine it, bro. Dead ass, provably, demonstrably wrong 4 times in 8 minutes in a 41-minute video. And your comment section is filled with people going like, oh my God, thank you for this, Bosch. Thank you for feeding me exactly what I wanted to hear about this conflict so that my particular political leanings could be justified and solidified. Thank you, Bosch. Thank you. Oh my God, Bosch is one of the only ones that's correct on this.
Yeah, and then anyone that disagrees is a tanky pro-Russia bot.
Yeah. I'm a tanky because of this. Yeah. I'm a tanky because I don't believe that the United States has any business intervening in the fucking Ukraine. I'm a tanky. I'm a tanky because I don't believe that Ukraine is this tiny little, slowly guttering flame of democracy in the Eastern Europe region that just has to be protected at all fucking costs. I'm a tanky because of that.
Yeah, it's like the fact that you don't understand a whole lot just bolsters your decision. It's like most people don't understand what the fuck's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it's like, do we go in? Because, like, look at Afghanistan, that proxy war with Russia.
That wasn't a proxy war. Afghanistan wasn't a proxy war. No. Because we had troops on the ground there, I'm pretty sure. That was it. Yeah. We didn't have troops on the ground there, so that couldn't have been a proxy war. A proxy war is when you fight, when you like actually send troops to fight another army. That's a wait a minute. Isn't that just a war? Never mind. Moving on. Got another bad take.
I could see, and then Biden and Boris Johnson are both like bolstering this war. They want it so bad.
It's mind-boggling to me that you could start a 41-minute analysis of a complex geopolitical event that is currently ongoing and emerging and not even fundamentally understand what a proxy war is. You're talking about a proxy war, and you start your 41-minute analysis of that proxy war by saying it's not a proxy war. That's like saying, like, Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to give you a 41-minute lecture on physics. And I'd like to start by saying that the flatness of the Earth affects physics. The fact that the Earth is a disk floating in space creates gravitational forces. We're going to talk about how that flat Earth creates these effects. Why am I going to listen to you anymore? What do you have to say in the 41 minutes that's going to contradict the fact that you just completely don't understand?
And he called it propaganda right off the bat. He's like, I'm pretty good at identifying propaganda.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at identifying propaganda. And then he spends the entire time picking one propaganda side, the pro-American, pro-interventionalist, pro-Ukraine, anti-Russian propaganda side, and parroting it. And coming up against factual inconsistencies in it and just going like, oh, no, it's not a proxy war. There's no white nationalists in Ukraine. They're all just freedom-loving people that big bad Russia is trying to crush. Unbelievable. Yeah, he like has to groom himself. I'm pretty good at recognizing propaganda and choosing which propaganda he tries to convince people that he's not a status quo Democrat puppet. Vosh seems like he tries to convince people that he is a Democrat. No, he's trying the other way around. He's trying to convince you that he's not while being one. You think all that college boy education he's got would help him? Dude, if you think that college prepares you to speak with authority, especially like a bachelor's degree prepares you to speak with authority on pretty much anything, you're wrong. You kind of like misunderstand college.
Yeah, college is honestly like 75% time management and understanding of how the assignments work and like good test taking skills.
Yeah.
I have a degree and I would not call myself an authority on what I got my degree in.
No. Most people that have your level of degree don't. But to some people, it's proof that they have a good generalist's knowledge of the world. Vosh is a perfect example of working your way backward from the conclusion. You come to your conclusion first, and then you work your way backward through the facts so that you can contextualize those facts to make it seem like it fits your take. That's 100% what he does. And if you want to see that, go watch the video on his channel called the Gravel Institute's Ukraine video is not great. It's up right now. I think it's his latest video. It's the first one that popped up for me today. Watch him start with his conclusion and work backwards from it. That is the exact opposite of what you do if you're actually trying to get to the truth of a matter. Trying to get to the truth of the matter, you admit your ignorance on the subject, and you go to multiple sources. And you can do this live if you want. You go to multiple sources and look at multiple different takes on this and try and contextualize the complexity of the geopolitical situation with regards to Eastern Europe and the history of it. And then at the very least, you'll have some kind of an idea on what to base your take. You don't start with the conclusion that the United States is the great savior of Ukraine and that it's our moral duty to step in and stop them from being harassed by Russia, and then work your way back from that conclusion, ignoring facts as you go to fit your narrative. When someone calls him out, he will change his statement as if that was what he was saying the whole time. He did that with the proxy war thing. He outright authoritatively states that a proxy war requires that you have your troops on the ground. Otherwise, it's not a proxy war. And then about a minute and a half later, once chat corrected him, he goes like, well, I could see the argument that a proxy war could be fought without, by just supporting another. It's like, no. That's not the argument. That's the definition of a proxy war. It's not. That's not a piece of nuance that maybe you can allow into the discussion. That is the absolute dictionary definition of a proxy war. You can go watch it. It's in the first 2 minutes of his most recent video. Ukraine is not a proxy war site. Ukraine is not about a proxy war between the United States and Russia. You can't have a proxy war if you don't have troops on the ground, which, by the way, is untrue. America has troops on the ground in Ukraine.
And even if there is somewhere that troops are not, the CIA definitely is. They're completely open about the fact that they have agents in every single possible country.
There are American assets in Ukraine, not just human assets, but military assets. It's a proxy war. We are arming one group against another group. It's the very definition of a proxy war. Russia's doing the same thing. Russia is aiding, abetting, and supporting pro-Russian separatist groups inside of the Ukraine, and the United States is shoring up the pro-Russian nationalist groups, which happen to include a bunch of fucking Nazis. And in order to admit that, would be admitting that your line that America is on the side of angels here is wrong. And it would be admitting that your line that America is somehow morally required to be an interventionalist state is wrong. Can't have that. So we got to recontextualize the whole fucking thing. It's not a proxy war. Ukraine's doing great. Wait, why is the GDP never recovered? Well, never mind. From what I've heard, there's been an amazing, flourishing Ukrainian economic system. Well, I guess the numbers don't bear that out, but that's what I heard. I don't know how anybody takes that seriously. I don't know how anybody with half a fucking brain in their head even begins to take that seriously. When you just completely and utterly have demonstrated that you misunderstand not only what's going on in the Ukraine, but the very fundamental and well-defined principles that underlie it. Proxy war. You don't even know what a proxy war is, and you want to talk for 41 minutes about how Gravel Institute is wrong about the Ukraine. And you literally are coming here with your pants around your ankles on what a proxy war is? You can't even start. You can't even start to unpack what's going on in the Ukraine if you fundamentally do not understand what a proxy war is. And yet he's got 41 minutes of analysis on a 12-minute video doing just that. With a demonstrable misunderstanding of the subject matter from the jump. Comment section filled with people praising him. I want you to genuinely look me in the eye and tell me that Vosh is not an agent of the status quo. I want you to genuinely look me in the eye and tell me that Vosh has ultimately different political leanings and political ideals than your average shitlib here in America. And what I'll ask you to do is, instead of listening to every word that he says, go ahead and listen to his words too, but look at the actions. Look at what the outcropping of his activism is. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the squad, Democratic American intervention in democratic countries. Got to go over here. Got to invade here. He's a fucking neolib.
Yeah, remember, right in the beginning of the Biden administration, he was defending the kids in cages.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
From the very jump.
From the jump. Well, it's different now. No.
Because there's plastic sheets instead of bars, so better.
After Afghanistan, America's looking for another war to show the rest of the world that they're still the world's police, to feed the military-industrial complex. The elites just need a pretext, yes.
Absolutely.
I think he has some radical views, but he also plays it safe to make his bread. I think his radical views are there to pull in disaffected political entities, and then I think that the rest of it is to be a mainstream political voice. So he will say some things that are undeniably quote unquote based, but then when the chips are down and you have actual geopolitics going on, for some reason he always finds himself snuggling up with the powers that be here in America. For some reason, despite all of this, you know, whatever he calls himself,
Libertarian socialist.
Libertarian socialist or ANCAP.
Syndicalist or whatever.
Yeah. Talks all that nonsense, but then when there's an actual world event on deck, just happens to toe the line of Joe Biden and the American military-industrial complex over and over again. For some reason, he finds himself in opposition to the very forces that cause those things on most of his channel, but when the chips are down, he finds himself on that side. Aesthetically radical is exactly what he is. He likes the aesthetics. He likes the aesthetics of being a political outsider. He likes the aesthetics of calling himself an anarchist. He likes the aesthetics. But when it comes to the actual application of those political positions, he'd much rather just kind of toe the American military-industrial complex line, because that's the easy one.
You don't have to understand if you agree.
And, I asked him about this the last time we talked. I asked him how he felt about my feeling that he takes radical leftist energy and channels it into centrist action. He didn't really have an answer for it. Because that's what he does. That's where he is. That's his position. Oh well. God, I hope you guys inevitably speak again, and we can see Paul completely flip the script and treat Vosh like his best friend after trashing him behind his back for a year. People act like I treated Vosh, like during both of my conversations with Vosh, we had massive disagreements.
You were just being civil. That's not
right. I didn't want to get kicked out of his room in the first 15 seconds, so I put on my civility mask. But I brought up every last one of these issues. This is not me just like saying shit I haven't said to him. He knows I believe that he takes radical leftist leaning people and funnels their energy into centrist neoliberal action. I said it straight to his face. Load of good that did. What did you expect? That I was gonna like put a dagger in his heart and end his career by pointing out what a lot of people already know about him?
Yeah, you just wanted to be civil enough to have him listen to you for more than 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah, had I gone in there just yelling and frothing at the mouth, it would have allowed him to immediately contextualize a win in the situation for the people that watched him. There would have been no chance that I even got to some of the issues that I got to with him about labor, about past electoral cycles. You remember when I called him out for not understanding why Bernie didn't win the first time and for having no idea? I wouldn't have even got to that if I'd have just started screaming. So I tell you what, dude, until you've walked a mile in my shoes and done my job, you might want to think about like tempering your advice to me. Because I don't think you know what the fuck you're talking about. It would be fun to see you do that, though. I'm sure it would be, but what would be the point?
You'd be in there 5 minutes and then it'd be like, bad face.
Yep.
Hung up on Paul's ego.
Just seems grossly disingenuous. He was genuinely shocked when he saw your background content because you were so fake in your conversation. So fake? How was I fake? What did I say in that conversation that I don't say to you guys here? That's fake. So in that conversation, when I talked at length about my advocacy for labor, that was fake. when I talked at length about how I felt that Vosh had radical ideas, but channeled those radical ideas into neoliberal action. That was fake. When I talked to Vosh about how I feel like he turned his back on Bernie Sanders like that in favor of supporting Joe Biden, even knowing that the DNC is behind scuttling that candidacy twice. That was fake. Really? How was I fake?
That's like saying that your love for your family's fake because
Because you might
be
talk shit
nice.
about and get mad at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got mad at my mom and said she was a bitch or something privately, so that means I'm fake. What? The fact that you're acting like you think he's a good actor and you have cordial, friendly conversation, then nonstop attack him as super acidic ways when you leave. What a dishonest response. I really honestly don't understand what your issue is. Is your contention that I should have just started screaming at Vosh and calling him a fucking idiot? This shows a profound misunderstanding of how interactions work on the internet. I wanted to have a long conversation with Vosh where I got to cover multiple things. And if I would have went in there screaming my head off and calling him a moron from the jump, that would have ended like that.
It's like when you were on DP, you wouldn't have gotten guests if you weren't cordial to them beforehand.
Yeah, that's the whole point. So you don't understand what you're talking about. You don't understand a single thing about doing what it is I do. You don't have to be his best friend and not be an acidic, insane person, Lamau. Who are you, bro? Who are you? Like, who are you to fucking call me insane? Like, you don't think you're wearing your bias on your sleeve with this conversation? Look, I know you love Daddy Voosh. Why don't you tell me how to contextualize his take that the Ukraine isn't a proxy war, rather than arguing with me about how acidic I am? Who gives a shit?
Like, have you never been outside your room? Do you not understand, like, different fucking attitudes in different situations?
No, he doesn't. Acidic, yeah, it's the new toxic. I've started to hear people using it. Vosh uses it. I've heard him use it months and months ago. So acidic is the new toxic. It's the Vosh version of toxic. Nobody ever changes their personality. I act the same with my girlfriend as I do with my grandparents. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, human beings don't have a number of masks that they use in social situations. Definitely, where you're one thing all the way through.
Yeah. Like, would you have a job and just call someone acidic to their face at the register?
No.
Are you that kind of person?
If you are, you're unemployed. Paul, not being an American, I wouldn't know, but are your people not fed up with war by now? How hard is it to manufacture consent at the moment? Super easy. Our Americans are so fed up by war that we don't care about it anymore. That's how fed up, and that was the ultimate goal, was to take war from this. Because if you look at the Vietnam War, there was a massive amount of protest against that war, a massive social movement against Americans' intervention, not only in Vietnam but in Korea and Indochina. There was just tons and tons and tons of American at-home negative response to those. And so what has happened over the years is that we've decontextualized war, we've turned it into a military conflict, and now there are so many of them going on so constantly for 20 years now and more. So many of them going on that people just don't have time to care about it anymore. There's too many to care about. Too
Yeah,
much
it's like,
misinformation to search through. Too much shit going on in our own lives. What goes on over there is what goes on over there to most people. There's just not room.
I guarantee about 80% of Americans couldn't identify Ukraine on a map.
Oh yeah, easily. Most Americans couldn't identify most countries on a map. So yeah, war has been taken from something that Americans, especially as a people, not as a government, but as a people, did extraordinarily reluctantly and with great protest, to something that they don't even really care about. The anti-war left is dead, like literally dead in the ground, buried, rotting in its corpse, or rotting in its coffin.
And like they don't even have any recourse either. It's like the president can just do whatever military action it wants without Congress. So you can't even complain to your congressman about war because they don't have a say in it anymore.
Vosh read the Ukraine wiki, so he has better takes than Jeremy Corbyn and the Gravel Institute. Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly what happened. I'm pretty sure I read that there was a really amazing comeback in the Ukrainian economy after they split from Russia.
It's like you can start with Wikipedia, but that's like a basis ground to like go look into each individual section.
Yeah. Funny how the only war America dragged its heels about joining, it's not the only war that America dragged its heels about joining, World War II, but that it's actually what you're saying here is actually an example of what I'm talking about. Americans used to be extraordinarily bearish on war. They did not want war. And if you were going to, you better be able to prove that we got to send our troops and put them in front of bullets to protect American interests. Because if you can't, then what's going on in Europe is Europe's business. That was the American attitude towards World War II. And it took Pearl Harbor to change that. Once we saw our soldiers dying and our planes and boats and military installations being bombed, that's all it took.
They've convinced people that, like, oh, because 9/11 happened, any military action anywhere in the Middle East is justified.
Yes, that was the neoconservative assertion, is that war is different now. And you can go back and listen to Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney and George W. Bush say this exact thing. War used to be two nation states going at it. War is now multinational. And these non-governmental organizations, these terrorist organizations, represent a new frontier in war. And so now we can't look at war like we used to, where you look at one country on the map and say they're doing damage to us in the world, we have to intervene. Now you have to look at war like, which one of these countries is harboring cells for this non-governmental organization? And now we bomb those countries. We've now expanded our theater of operation from what we consider to be the central hub of our problems to pretty much anywhere we want. We can say that there's a terrorist cell operating in, Azerbaijan and invade. We can say that there's a terrorist cell operating in Libya and invade.
And then now it's so lazy and detached too. It's like, oh, we're pulled out of Afghanistan, but we'll throw some drone strikes here and there. That's not war.
Yeah, we'll keep bombing the shit out of it, but we're out of Afghanistan. Okay. Well, no, but okay.
I think Biden is just desperate to find something to bolster his popularity. And
he should be.
A Ukraine war is what he thinks is the right answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Like, literally all he'd have to do to lock in, like, 2024 would be to actually fulfill any of his promises. Like, student loans, that would get him a win instantly.
Yep. I think increasing industrialization and automation of war has contributed to the passivity of the anti-war movement. Well, yes and no. Like, yes, because those actions do not require massive troop movements and embedded reporters and news coverage and pictures of the aftermath and all of that. We don't even get to hear about most of the drone strikes that happen. They've taken what would have been an open act of war that would have been a matter for discussion at every dinner table in America and turned it into a secret war that we only get to hear a little bit about here and there when they do something that they consider to be good, like killing a terrorist leader or something.
With, some children thrown
With some children at their birthday party or whatever. So I'm an anti-war leftist, and I'm a member of a dead tribe. We used to be the strongest moral center of radical leftism. The anti-war left was an absolute, unmovable beacon of leftism, and it now does not exist anymore. It just doesn't exist.
And that's part of the division too. Like, that used to unite people. Like, there would be like conservatives and leftists against Iraq.
Yep.
And they would protest together.
Yep. People don't believe that, but it's absolutely true. There were a number, especially in the era that you're talking about, Operation Desert Storm through Operation whatever, Iraqi Freedom, the 90s through the mid 2000s. There were tons and tons of people on the right who were against war and would show up to anti-war demonstrations. Absolutely. It's gone now. That movement is gone because war has been changed. The more I went against warmongering, the more often I was called a tanky, which was funny in an ironic way. Yeah. No, I know. Now, if you don't toe the DNC line, you're some kind of because I don't think that America has any business getting in a hot war with Russia over a territorial dispute in that part of the world. I'm a tanky. I'm somehow some pro-fucking Lenin, Stalin-loving fucking CP fucking guy.
It's so weird how people just aren't suspicious at all at how selective it is. There's atrocities happening all over the world.
Yep.
But we're very selective.
Yep. As we're all hyper-focused on Ukraine because that's the political football that the powers that be here in America want Americans to believe is the most important thing right now. There are fucking strongmen, dictators, and just outright fucking usurpers and, military coup members abusing their population, exploiting their population to the nth degree. And we're actually supporting these countries. We're directly involved, directly allied with a lot of these countries. Saudi Arabia is one of the most oppressive countries on the planet when it comes to its people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most barbaric.
They literally admit that they're not a democracy.
Yep. They're the literal opposite of a democracy. They are a religious theocracy that is incredibly brutal to its population and even more brutal to people among its population who are minorities. So gay people, incredibly brutal to women, Christians, anybody that isn't Islamic, anybody that isn't Muslim is pretty much fucked in that country.
Or even a different
And we go over there and hold hands with them.
Remember the orb?
Yeah, the orb of destiny. Yeah, even people who are Islamic. You're right. If you're not the right kind of Islamic, you get fucked up. You're not the right flavor of Muslim. But for some reason, there's no moral outrage. There's no call for buildups of troops on the border of Saudi Arabia and sanctions against Saudi Arabia. And hey, maybe we should do some limited military conflicts in Saudi Arabia. Maybe we should back the Saudi Arabian separatist groups. There's no talk of that because there's too much money being made.
Yeah, where's Operation Saudi Freedom, man?
Yeah. Operation Saudi Freedom. Operation Iranian Freedom. By the way, Iran is a great story. I bring it up all the time because most people don't know that Iran used to be exactly what we claim we want to make in the Middle East. It used to be a westernized democracy in the Middle East. And because that westernized democracy decided that it wanted to be an international player and take control of its own oil supplies, we brutally deposed their leader, brutally deposed Mossadegh, and installed the Shah of Iran, a CIA operative. And now look what happened.
Ayatollah.
That led to the Ayatollahs, which led to Iran being currently one of the largest and most powerful fundamentalist Islamic states in the world. Oops. But let's intervene, guys. Let's intervene.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing it.
If you're not as much of a fan of documentaries, probably the best dramatization is like Charlie Wilson's War, for like a demonstration of proxy wars.
Yeah. I mean, no coil detected. It's right there, buddy.
Batteries?
No, it's not the battery. Okay, there it goes. My little vape here is not... I've had it forever, but it's probably time to replace it, honestly.
Oh yeah, because you gave that other one to your stepdad, didn't you?
What? The little one?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have been able to use that. Anyway. I need another one of these. This brand here, Geek Vape or whatever, I went through so many of these. Mm-hmm. So fucking many of these. This is the best constructed one. I've dropped this. This has fallen out of my pocket and hit the ground. I've abused and used this thing, and it is still solid. I mean, the construction on this thing is totally solid. Super thick leather on the grip here. That has never come up, never frayed. You can see the stitching on it is fully intact. The only thing I've got to show that this thing has any age on it is the chips and stuff on the green finish on this metal. But these things are made like a brick. You could like beat somebody to death with this fucking thing and then vape it. This is made in America by a company called Geek Vapes. I think it's assembled in America. I don't know if everything is made in America, but Geek Vapes makes this, and it's like
Yeah, the screws aren't even coming out.
No, nothing. These things, like I said, this thing is a brick. It's made to be dropped and abused and used and reused. And I've done, I haven't dropped it off a building or anything. Maybe that would hurt it. And I haven't like completely dropped it in a body of water or something. But I imagine that if I did like do that, I could just pop the batteries out, let it sit and dry out for a few days, and it would probably fire right back up. Like, it's a really well-made thing. But the thing that's going out on it, honestly, is this part. This little 510 connector, and I could probably clean it a little bit.
Let's see what that is.
It's got a little bit of gunk. But it's starting to be a little bit loose and wonky in there. I think I paid like, and you got to understand, man, if you're going to get one of these, you kind of get what you pay for. I would not buy one of the cheap ones. I think this one's like $70 or $80. Might be a little more, but I think I paid $75 for mine. Flaming Hot Cheetos, mac and cheese is a thing now, and I feel disgusted. Mr. Naughty Priest, you maybe should try it. What if you end up liking it, Mr. Naughty Priest? What if you end up liking it? What if you get it just to see how disgusting and wrong things have gotten, and you eat it and you're like, God damn, that's good. Could happen. I tend to be a stodgy bastard too, Mr. Naughty Priest. And I have not tried the Flaming Hot Cheeto mac and cheese, but I'm willing. I'll admit, I agree, it sounds bad. I'll admit, it immediately, upon reaction, makes me despair. But I allow for the fact that maybe it's good. Thank you, as always, by the way, sir, for your kind contribution. Cheetos are being used as an ingredient in a lot of new cuisines. I love it, dude. Love the El Corbett on DFF recently. Yeah, dude. You never know. You got to throw some of those out there. Man, I hate that TJ and Scotty are not super gamers, man. They don't get any of my game references. Well, they do. They get some of them. But they don't get all my game references. I can't make an Elder Scrolls joke with them. I can't make a Skyrim joke with them. I can't be like, you know, I was going to be president of the United States, but then I took an arrow to the knee. If I said that, I don't think any of them would even get the meme. You know, I made an Elcor joke the other day, and it was 100% for the enjoyment of the audience, because neither one of them even understood what I was doing, dude. Sad. The people I work with do not appreciate my Elcor impersonation. Inquisitive. I wonder if either of them has even tried playing Mass Effect. Wait, you actually know things about the Elder Scrolls app too? I've played every Elder Scrolls game. Well, not every. I haven't played Redguard. I think there's a couple of spin-offs I haven't played, but every main Elder Scrolls game from Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim. I've played every last one. So yeah, I know some Elder Scrolls lore. You're gonna get Starfield? I don't really even... Man. Oh, sweet. Somebody's got a remote control airplane. Don't crash it, bro. Somebody's got an RC plane. Bruh, only the OGs saw your schematic days, apparently, yeah. Yeah, I played Arena. I never beat Arena. Arena was a really hard game. You should do another video sometime then about the Elder Scrolls. Can't really do it. The guys like have no frame of reference. I thought everybody had played Skyrim or something at least, but no. Turns out, no. I feel like every gamer got that series that they've explored every nook and cranny and just endlessly love, despite any flaws. True gamer love. I think most people that are really into games have multiple franchises that are like that. I know I do. So the Ice Castle broke me in Arena. That's when I dropped it. I played when I was a kid, so I can't even remember when I dropped it. I just remember playing that game over and over and not being able to get super far in it. But I did play it. I played a lot of Daggerfall as well. Daggerfall was a crazy game when it came out, man. Like crazy ahead of its time. Play it again. Ooh. Creator of Arena and Daggerfall making a Daggerfall-like game called The Wayward Realms. Neat. That would be cool. Daggerfall, I think, would benefit a lot from like a modern glow up or whatever. Not just in graphics. I really don't even care about that, but like just the it was an early computer game, you know what I mean? It was so the GUI, the graphical user interface, and just some of the like mechanics and stuff could probably be really improved. No, but Daggerfall was out of control, insane for the time that it came out, like so ahead of its time. Still is one of the largest game worlds ever made. The sheer amount of places that you could visit in Daggerfall was just astonishing. And it kind of pioneered the procedurally generated dungeon and all of that crap. You heard of Daggerfall Unity? No. I assume that's a Unity engine remake of Daggerfall. It'd be really neat, but I have not heard of it, no. If you look up the trailer, it's only an artsy markup with narrative, but it invokes the same feel as Daggerfall. Well, that's nice, but Daggerfall was not. It was about the feel and the gameplay. It was the first time in a video game that I felt the sense that I was being allowed to explore a world rather than exploring different screens that looked like different parts of the world. I had a world map. I could put my cursor anywhere on that map and have my guy travel there, and like on the world map screen. And then when he got there, I was in a completely different region, and every region was distinct. I mean, they shared a lot of assets, obviously. It was an early video game, but it was a huge world. And it really honestly gave you the feeling of an adventurer that got to choose, like, okay, this quest seems more important than this quest, so I'm going to go over here. There was no, like, there was a storyline through it. You could get through Daggerfall and beat it. There was a main quest line, but it was just very much presented as an open sandbox type of game almost.
Guess what we haven't gotten yet?
What?
Those tests.
Oh, really? Fucking ridiculous, man.
It's been a month.
We ordered our free COVID tests from Biden like a month ago, and they're supposed to be here today, and they're still not here. I would probably take one today, honestly. I've been sick with like this, what feels like a sinus infection, kind of like a bronchial infection.
Dinor.
I've been sick with it for a few days. Like, you just can't be out here today, man. You're not gonna chill. What advice would you give someone who's never played an Elder Scrolls game who's interested in learning to play one? I mean, like, honestly, if you've never played one, I would say the latest one. Get into Skyrim. Now, Skyrim, amongst Elder Scrolls fans that have played all of the games, or at least the three major Elder Scrolls releases, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, there's not a whole lot of consensus in that community of players about Skyrim being the best. Some people think it is. Most people don't think it is. The best tends to be split between people like me that think Morrowind was the best. That's Elder Scrolls 3, so that's the oldest of the three that we're talking about. And then there are a bunch of people that think that Oblivion is the best as well. So, yeah, getting into because here's the thing, Jackson. Morrowind is my favorite, but it's also an older game than Skyrim, and it requires a lot more patience to get enjoyment out of it because the game systems are not super refined. Some of them don't make a whole lot of sense, and so you really have to be sucked in to the setting of Morrowind to get the full enjoyment out of it, and be willing to throw away some of the things you know about how modern video games work and play around with some systems that are not super intuitive. But yeah, Morrowind is my favorite, but Skyrim is the most accessible. Yeah, like beyond the most accessible. And it's definitely an epic game. Good storyline, good amount of freedom, giant open world to discover and explore, and lots of side things to do that have nothing to do with the main story. It's very much what you want in an Elder Scrolls game, but it's very tightly made in a modern AAA way. Favorite race to play in Elder Scrolls? I'm always a Bosmer. So Elder Scrolls has some pretty typical fantasy races that you can pick from, and some pretty atypical one. You've got 3 different flavors of human: Imperial, Breton, and Redguard. The minor differences between them, and you can basically, Elder Scrolls is a game where you can make any character, any class. So race is more of a flavor choice than anything in the end of the day. And you got the 3 different types of elves. You got high elves, Dunmer, and Bosmer. Dunmer are dark elves, Bosmer are wood elves. So I usually am not an elf guy, but in every Elder Scrolls, I've always, since Morrowind, I've always played a Bosmer, because my favorite way to play Elder Scrolls is a lot of people's favorite way to play Elder Scrolls. I play a stealthy archer with a little bit of magic and a whole lot of sneak for those backstabs and those sneak attack crits and all of that. Altmer, yeah, that's the name of the high elves, you're right. So it's Altmer, Dunmer, Bosmer. High elves are typical high elves. They're like wizardy, magey types usually, but you can make a high elf into anything. Bosmer are typical wood elves. They're the kind of archer, sneaky woodsman types. Dunmer, typical dark elves. They're the evil. Well, I guess it's no, maybe not. I guess Dunmer probably differ most from the way that they're portrayed in typical fantasy, like dark elves are typically portrayed. They're not necessarily evil, but they are, a separate race of elves that is into some, has their own culture that it could be, interpreted as a little dark. Done well, all of the elvish races are pretty racist. In fact, there's a lot of racism in the Elder Scrolls. These races don't always have the greatest relations with one another. For example, like uh, people are very racist against Khajiit. This is another race. Khajiit. There's Khajiit, and then there's the lizard folk. And people are very racist against both of those. They treat them. They're very much like analogs of people of color in the setting. Khajiit and lizard folk are treated as second class citizens a whole lot. You see a lot of them amongst the homeless that you run into in you know in the Elder Scrolls series. Argonians, thank you. I sometimes forget the lore names for them. This one has fine wares. Take a look, no? This one smells skooma. Well, that's one of the cool things about the Elder Scrolls is that you have these character development opportunities where you get to play any kind of character you want. You want to be like a battle mage, you can do it. Are you going to be as good as a pure warrior or as good as a pure mage at dealing direct damage? Maybe not, but you're going to be way more versatile. You're going to be able to take a hit, you're going to be able to throw a sword, and when you want to throw a lightning bolt, you want to do it, do it. You want to be a stealthy mage who picks pockets, and then when shit gets crazy, you go straight to the lightning hands or the fireballs or whatever. You can do it. You know, you want to play an orc wizard, you can do it. There's really no restrictions, and everything is viable. You may have a little bit of a harder time with some, race class combinations or whatever. But if you stick with it, you're gonna get through the game just fine. So yeah, there's a lot of lore in the games too. If you're one of those people that likes to like stumble on little vignettes in the game that the people put in there that aren't necessarily have anything to do with the main story, but that inform you about some kind of piece of the culture, it's filled with that kind of stuff. So stealth mages or heavy armor archers, yeah, you could do it. I don't know exactly why you would do it, but you could do it, man. You could be a heavy armor archer. Why not? Go for it. Are you big into getting the Daedric artifacts? I like getting them, but I'm not a super completionist in Elder Scrolls games. I kind of play them until I'm ready to beat the main storyline. I don't really like that was another thing I liked about them is that a lot of games make you feel like you're doing something wrong if you skip side content or whatever, but there's so much of it, especially in the modern Elder Scrolls games, that you really don't feel like you left anything on the table. Like I usually just play until I kind of get bored with the character, and then I'm like, all right, time to hit that main quest line. Beat the game. Let the game collect dust for a few months, and then when I'm starting to feel the itch again, roll up another character and do it a different way. Is there a campaign-driven storyline? Kind of, yeah. There's like a main storyline that you can follow in the game. But I really think that if you do go, and I'm pretty sure you can viably just follow that and kind of get through the game. But if you do that, if you just drill through an Elder Scrolls game and don't allow yourself to get distracted, don't allow yourself to be on the way to a main story quest and see a cave and go like, what the fuck is in that cave? You just go like, oh, no, there's no quest marker in that cave. If you're that type of person, you're probably not going to get much out of the Elder Scrolls. It's a game series that's meant for people with wandering minds and wanderlust in general, you know. Yeah, I've never, like, as much as I've played, especially the big three, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, as much as I've played those games, and I've played them a lot, I've nowhere come near to seeing all the content in all of them. Yep. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do in those games. You get, all the games kind of start with like an introductory scene where you've got to like escape from jail or whatever. You always start as a prisoner in Elder Scrolls. It's kind of a meme. So you're either, you know, a prisoner or you're being sentenced. Like in Morrowind, you're a prisoner on a ship and you've been sentenced, like banished to the Isle of Morrowind or whatever. And so you got to go through the whole process of, you know, being accepted as a citizen there and blah, 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 blah. And then in Oblivion, you start in a dungeon and then, you know, you're led out through a secret passage. And then in Skyrim, you start as a prisoner who's about to be put to death. All of the games have, which game had the best Dark Brotherhood? Oblivion, probably. I've done the Dark Brotherhood quests in all three of the games, and I would say that Morrowind has a pretty sparse Dark Brotherhood quest because they, like, Morrowind is a whole different continent and they have their own version of it called a Morag Tong. So, but yeah, I'd say Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood was the most interesting because there was a lot of like intrigue and power grabs and plot twists and stuff in that little subquest line, and you really did feel powerful at the end of it, you know, like in a way that you're another character that hadn't done that quest line wouldn't get to feel powerful. So, you a GTA fan? Yep. Yeah, I've played all of the main release GTA games, including the isometric early games. I believe that one of them was on the PS1. So, but yeah, I've played all of the big ones, the big GTA games. Only missing like spin-off games and weird side games and stuff. And you guys know what Elder Scrolls 6 is about? I think it's going to be about the looming war with the Thalmor and dragons still being around. Yeah, I don't know. Have they confirmed a setting for Elder Scrolls 6? Is it the Sunset Isles? Because if it's the Sunset Isles, it's almost certainly a Thalmor storyline for sure. I just keep hoping for like a main Elder Scrolls game in Elsewhere or Black Marsh. Those are the two places. Like Elsewhere would be where the Khajiit are from, and Black Marsh is where the Argonians are from. I think that having that as a setting would be amazing. There are games like that. Yeah, there are games that are 100% like that that don't have a main quest. One of the games I used to play and I talk about here all the time, Ultima Online, was like that. There was no main quest in Ultima Online. The quest was, here's this big world, here's this character creation system that allows you to kind of customize however you want. Go have fun. It's a sandbox MMO, so the players made the content, you know. It's gonna be in Hammerfell High Rock. Oh, yeah, I don't know, man. I guess we'll see. You can't really check it out now, Squid, unfortunately. I'll give you another one. There's a game called Outward. You can get it on Steam, and it is very much that kind of game. I haven't played much of it, but I did think it was a pretty cool game, the little bit that I did play that I just didn't have time to play it at the time I was into it. But the game is very much like that. It doesn't really have a centralized storyline. A more modern game, way more accessible than trying to play old Ultima. I would recommend you play Outward. Yeah, definitely just like throws you into the world, doesn't tell you what to do at all. So be prepared to be a little frustrated as you figure out the game mechanics and stuff. But it's definitely that type of thing where you define your own progression through the game. Paul for creative director for Elder Scrolls 6. Dude, I would love to do that sort of thing as a job. Like I would that's something that like I think I would be really good at, not necessarily the design elements of video games. Like I definitely don't have an aptitude for actual programming and all of that. But the concept end, like being one of the concept guys, dude, I think I could create some awesome video games. I really do. I have a penchant for narrative, and I've got a lot of crazy, video game ideas that I think would make amazing games. And so that's something that I really like would love to do, to be given the opportunity to do. I just don't even know what you call that, game director, I guess. Like who's the guy that's not necessarily programming the game but that is conceptualizing the game and overseeing the writing of the game and coming up with the tone of the game. That's the game director probably, right? I would love to do that. I think that would be fun. I think I'd make a pretty cool game. Lead Parky. Oh, okay, cool. The number one Parky. Be like Kojima and Metal Gear. Yeah. Creative director. Yeah. Or game director. Yep. That would be a cool job. I'd definitely be into that as a job for sure. And to be honest with you, a lot of the ideas I have are the very type of game that Squid was talking about. That outward style of game where you're just kind of dropped into the game as a normal person and you develop yourself based on what you want to do in the game. Like I've for the longest time wanted to see a massively multiplayer game with a big giant world that's based on the Old West. And I want to do some things that might even be considered to be insensitive, but I really want to take it seriously. Like I want players to be able to have an Old West experience, because as unpopular as Westerns are in the culture right now, I still think that the setting draws a lot of people and provides a lot of interesting gameplay opportunities. So for example, this Old West MMO that I've had in my head forever would allow you to, enter as a settler who is just moving west with a very few possessions and kind of make your name for yourself. What are you? Are you an outlaw? Are you somebody that's gonna, get their hands on some weaponry and maybe form a gang with one or two other people and try and waylay people as they move in between towns? Are you a law enforcement guy? Are you a bounty hunter? Are you a super capitalist who's looking to set up a gold mining operation and create an empire where you hire other players to protect your interests and blah 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 blah? You know, I also, and this is probably the most controversial part of it, I want people to be able to play Native Americans. Like, I want to do extensive research into the different tribes of Native Americans that would be existent in the area of the Old West that we choose to set this in, And I want to give people the opportunity to experience the game entirely from that perspective as well. So within the Native American choice would be all kinds of different things. You want to be a hunter, you want to be a warrior, you want to be a chieftain or a trader, not a trader against your native, like a person that trades goods. Do you want to be an American Indian that finds his way out of the tribe and integrates himself more into the kind of new culture that's pushing itself in, like a Native American bounty hunter in an old west town? You know, all of those types of choices conglomerated in one game that doesn't steer you. It just gives you opportunity. Want to be the town drunk? I'm sure. I'm sure there'd be plenty. A Western sandbox MMO, yes. Counting coup collectibles, yeah, you could. Scalps, cattle baron, hoard money in the local bank, yep. But then the bank gets robbed and you're broke because there's no FDIC insurance. Uh-oh. What do? Better take what little money you have left and hire a bunch of bounty hunters to find those bastards that robbed that bank. Get your money back. How would bounties work? I have this really cool idea, right? So you could, as a highwayman, obviously disguise your personality. I don't want a video game where your name is floating around over your head. This is a huge design element that differs from a lot of online games. You pick a name, you have a legal name in the game, but the name that you give to people doesn't have to be that name. You are identified through infamy, right? So if you're a small time stick up guy and you take the time to disguise your character, there's really going to be not a lot for a victim of the crime to go on. You still report it to the police, you still give a description, and that description is based upon what your character could have seen and your stats. So if you have good, you know, you've done a lot of skills that develop your mental stats, then you are going to be able to give a better description through a game mechanic of the person who robbed you than a person who doesn't have good mental stats. A person who's more scatterbrained, or a person, you know, whatever, has lower stats there. They're going to have a harder time recalling the detail. And so it depends on your infamy. Now, if you do one thing like that, there's a good chance, you know, a guy's going to tell you, hey, you know, I want to put a bounty out on this guy. What do you remember about him? Well, he was, and through an in-game selection menu, you'll be able to select, you know, he's about this tall, had a gravelly voice, whatever. And that information will be sent out to bounty hunters via an in-game, you know, like a perception check in D&D, exactly. But, you know, all kind of controlled by an in-game system, so that you're not having, you know, because like it would get way too complex if people were giving actual descriptions. So the description that you're able to give to law enforcement is based on how perceptive your character is, and maybe even how cool and collected your character is under duress as well. So if you pull one job, there's a good chance you get away with it because the description's not going to be that good. You pull 20 jobs, and those descriptions become conglomerated, and now all of a sudden they may even kind of know what your name is at this point. You've been reported enough times that the people that play law enforcement officers can start to look into you and say, oh, this guy's name is Jack Caulfield. Got it. Well, let's go get a look at his face. And now all of a sudden you've got wanted posters with your character's face and identifying information posted in every little Old West town with a bounty right there, just like in the Old West. Enough people saw your face for them to draw up a picture of you that's enough for people to be able to make the connection. But in order to get to that level where you've got a really, you got a high bounty on your head, you gotta be a dude that's really committed to, you know, robbing people. You gotta rob a bunch of different people. You gotta commit a bunch of different crimes. And then as a natural outcropping of your life of crime, slowly but surely, who you are is going to become more apparent to the world at large. And then you achieve a level of infamy and you're like a Jesse James or something, right? I think that would be so fucking cool. And by the way, I don't want any NPCs actually enforcing any of this. The law enforcement are humans, because here's what I want there to be the nuance in law enforcement. In so many of these games, the law enforcement is handled by an NPC, and they're indiscriminate. If you break one of the in-game rules, they show up and arrest you or try and kill you or whatever. I don't want any of that. No, I want because there are going to be people that want that, right? But they want to be like, hey, I want to be a sheriff. But within that group of people, I want to leave the ability for those people that had the best intentions and became a law enforcement person to be swayed by money, right? And so it's like let's say a law enforcement guy doggedly pursues this, mid-rank kind of stick-up guy and catches him, and he's about to take him in for the bounty, and the stick-up guy says, I'll give you $10,000 in gold to walk away from this. Throws a bag down. I'll give you 10,000 in gold right now. Walk away from this and let me keep doing what I do. There's going to be people that take that deal, And then there's going to be people that realize that in game, there's going to be rewards for not taking that deal. Because in the same way that you can become an infamous outlaw, you can become an infamous lawman. The stereotypical kind of like idealized Western hero, the guy in the white hat, the uncorruptible sheriff that has a ton of deputies that are true believers and all about making things, taking things back from these gangs and gangsters that have taken over these smaller towns. And you become an infamous lawman. And when these people that are doing these crimes see you and your posse riding up, they know there's no negotiating. Oh shit. That's Sheriff Chalmers and his fucking boys. They don't negotiate. Better get the guns, boys. Also, writing letters could be a thing. Like if your buddy playing lives up the road, maybe you can write them letters and mail it to plan things together in secret. Yeah, and have a person have like side content in the game where maybe you make your money by being a mail carrier. Think about how dangerous that was back in the day. So you if you're a mail carrier, you come at regular intervals. It's your job to take your wagon, start in a town, pick up all the mail in that town, go to a number of other towns and deliver the mail and protect the mail. So there's a good chance you send a message to your friend hoping that they get it, and there's no instant messaging in the game, no voice chat. You can't really stop people from voice chatting, but just think about it as a gameplay element. If you wanted to send a letter to somebody, there's a chance that letter doesn't get there. There's a chance that letter gets intercepted on its way there by somebody who uses the information in that letter against you. Like maybe you get around the voice chat kind of thing by making sending a letter part of creating a plot, right? So even if you have a guild that you talk to in Discord while you're playing the game, you have to plot within the game. Like, the game is not going to assume that you have some kind of godly communication device. So you've got to abide by the rules of the game. So if you want to get a plot together where you're going to rob a bank, you can't just get your guys together and do it. You've got to send letters. You've got to make purchases. You've got to assign roles within the plot. And every time you do that, it gives an opportunity for you to fail a skill check and leave a piece of evidence that a lawman could catch on to. Oh my God, the Branson boys are planning a bank job. So when they arrive, there's going to be a bunch of us here. They're going to find no customers in the bank, just a bunch of guns. Think about that, dude. Think about how cool that would be. Like, you pull up to do a bank job expecting a bustling town, and you just roll in and everybody's inside. There's like a tumbleweed. You're like, oh man, this doesn't feel right, man. Why is there nobody out? It's high noon. And you start looking at the tops of the buildings and you see people with rifles. You're like, oh man, we've been had, boys. Run. Every man for himself. The great thing about this too is that I feel like it is almost like a transferable to any other setting. So you could take this type of idea and make like a cyberpunk type of game with it. That's the other setting that I think would be so amazing for this. Is that, especially now that you have the reference point of the new cyberpunk game that came out, this idea of dropping you into this, medium distance future hyper capitalist cyberpunk setting, and letting you create a character that occupies part of the strata in that complex world. So just like the Old West, you've got gangs. So if you want to be a person that's on the other side of the law, you've got gangs that you can join. And these gangs, of course, have different rivalries and different leaders. All of them, of course, set up by people in the game. I don't want there to be like NPC gangs that you can join. I want these gangs to be set up and led by actual personalities. I want the infighting. I want the power grabs. I want the alliances between gangs. You want to be, you think it's cooler to role play as a cop. You want to be one of the crazy enforcers. You want to be an undercover detective that infiltrates these gangs but provides intel about them, hoping you don't get found out. There's game systems in place for this, right? You want to be like a corporate enforcer. You don't want to be part of the cops. You don't want to be part of the gangers. You want to be part of the people who make money. And so you start as a corporate enforcer, bodyguard to one of the rich players in the game. And you're hoping that, through your kind of adjacency to this business mogul in the game, that you can start off on your own and maybe someday betray him and take over his empire. See, I want a game that enforces role playing. Like, you don't have to necessarily role play in the game, but all of the systems are based around your character being what it is. You can't boost your character. You can't, you know what I mean? You've got to go through you've got to make the character somebody in the game world. You get around some of the futurist elements too and create that outlaw kind of mentality by making one of the things that you can do in the game as a player forgery. So you would say like, oh well, in a distant future kind of place, there would be like, people would have ID on them. you'd have some kind of ID chip implanted in you or something so you could instantly be known who you are. Well, what if you went to some kind of like underground doctor who specialized in, manipulating that chip and making you have a different identity, and only a really staunch investigator that has the skill can look into it and recognize the forgery and possibly find out who you really are. But to the average person, you are whoever it says on your ID. That's all they can see. So but altering the chip is a crime. So if you want to be on the side of like cops or whatever, then you have to think twice about doing it. Or if you want to be an infiltrator, because just like the cops can send spies to infiltrate the gangs could send spies to infiltrate the cops. So you could be like a ganger that goes through the process of changing your identity, and you appear at the police station and you start going through the motions of becoming a low-level police officer, hoping to work yourself up in the ranks with a false identity, hoping nobody ever looks into you. Yeah, like The Departed, yeah. You just kind of hope nobody looks into your past and nobody takes a closer look at your identifiers and all of that. And there will be a lot of people who are probably like successful at infiltrating in that way. So pretty, like, I like these ideas. I think it would be really complex to make them come to life in a game world. There's a lot of complexity that would have to be baked into the game system. I think that shit would be amazing. Work your way up to a cop and only hire rebels and operate a chip altering factory and free prisoners. Neat. Be like a subversive cop. Not necessarily like a cop that's been turned by a criminal organization, but a cop that has their own agenda within the police office that happens to be counter to the police. Interesting. Like a Serpico. All of that stuff would happen and would be possible. So I really like it. I like thinking about stuff like that. That's why I think it would be just a fun job to get to try one of these days. I don't really have a desire to be one of the graphical designers or the game designer from like that perspective. I like having input on the aesthetic and the storyline and the gameplay systems. I think that would be neat. There's a lot you could do with it, but the hermit in me longs for a single player version. I really honestly think that if you made this game the way that I'm thinking, because I'm one of those people too, I like playing these online games, but I like playing them alone. It's a very strange thing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but there are a lot of people like me. And I really think if these games were designed correctly, you could totally lone wolf it. You don't have to be a dude. You could make the central kind of guiding star of your character that you have no connections. You're like a ghost. You know what I mean? You're not a member of these gangs. You don't care for the police. You don't care for the corpse. You're out there to serve yourself. And so you pursue things of a solo nature constantly. You know, if you're a criminal, you make scores on your own, knowing that you risk the wrath of the gangs that control that area, but you don't care because you're doing it on your own. You know, I think that if you made the game properly in the way that I have kind of lined it out, that would be a total possibility. You could play this game and really treat the other players in it like they're NPCs if you really wanted to. Go your own road, carve your own, you know, little piece of it, make your own way in it. Totally. Yeah, I agree that the sad truth of it is that most MMOs don't really support solo play, especially in the end game. Um, there's certainly been MMOs that did support a solo play style all the way through to the end, but they're mostly older examples of the MMO genre. And of course, every MMO, if you have like ambitions of being the richest person in the game or the most powerful person in the game, you know, every MMO kind of makes it necessary for you to gather other people. And I think that makes sense. You know, nobody rises to power as a single entity. Yeah, if you want to do that, you have to be willing to play the game with other people. You have to be willing to consolidate all of this stuff and, you know, make all these deals and work your way up through the ranks through by hook or by crook, you know. And but if you want to be a drifter, you know, a gypsy, a person who's here today and gone tomorrow, kind of a panhandler, a street performer, or just an unaffiliated thug, or you know, you want to role play a drug addict, where, you know, everything that you do is to secure the bag so that you can go get more drugs or whatever. There should be plenty of ways that this game could be really fun to play in a solo environment. For the Western game, please add a skinwalker. Yeah. Maybe so, huh? Maybe there's like, you just have a chance when you roll up an American Indian. It's like a 0.01 chance or something that your character is going to be a skinwalker. So that there's like, you know, at any given point on any server, there's like maybe 5 of them spread out through the tribes, you know, and nobody knows who they are and you don't know where they're going to be. Yeah, that'd be pretty neat. I also enjoy playing MMOs alone. Yeah, I mean, I'm good with it. No, I don't want people contracting. I don't want people to be able to game it. I want it to be a literal, just chance roll like it would be. And the people that are them, that's just, you're just it, you know. And then maybe there's like a hard limit for there can only be this many skinwalkers actively playing the game. If one quits, then, you know, another skinwalker gets made randomly at a very low chance amongst the population, you know. So that the people that play these have a unique experience and a unique set of you know, issues that they have to deal with. It could be that somebody rolls up a character and wants to play, you know, a Native American and ends up a skinwalker and ends up not liking the fact that they're a skinwalker because it adds gameplay elements that they're not interested in. And so they just kind of, you know, quit the character before it gets too far into it and re-roll somebody that isn't a skinwalker, and that opens up a skinwalker slot, you know. Yeah, one player is El Chupacabra, dude. I like it. But yeah, there's a lot of complexity that you could do too. That's the reason I like the idea of adding Native Americans, is because there were Native Americans that integrated themselves almost immediately, like left the tribal life and started living among the Westerners. So you would see people that, you know, had that in mind. There were also Native American gangs who split from their tribe and you know, would ride around in kind of a self-serving manner. All of these things are supported historically, and so why not have them in the game? Why not have the option in the game? It just seems fun. And so, because you know, a lot of these multiplayer games, I feel like they just feel so impersonal, even though you're surrounded by other people. And I want to create a game that almost forces that to be a more personal thing. Oh yeah, there definitely be turf wars and tribes that make a deal with a local town to send a bunch of extra people to help them fight. Versus and maybe that the other tribe, unbeknownst to that tribe, made a deal with another town, and so they've got reinforcements that jump in at some point in the battle. It'd just be so cool. Just be so cool. The only thing that I'm really confused about in the game as to how we would deal with it is like death. Part of me wants like a permadeath mechanic, but I know that that would be frustrating to people who want that progression. So maybe you'd have a permadeath mechanic with some kind of inherited skill system where another character is born, or something like that. That's you could get around it by just being like, death is basically just a setback, like an incarceration or something. So if you're like a member of a gang and you get captured or whatever, then you have to go through a whole game mechanic to escape or whatever, maybe. But that's, I think, the only thing. Yeah, it keeps partial knowledge, keeps some of your progression, allows you to create a character that maybe has, a higher skill set than a new character, but still permadeath. When you die, he plays your character's descendants. I mean, yeah, we would just have to lock the game technologically or do very selective technological upgrades like expansions. But yeah, that could work. Oh, it definitely has to. See, there has to be some kind of penalty to death. That's another thing that is almost completely missing in modern MMOs that I want to re-inject in them in a big way. You don't necessarily have to be completely like railed out of the game when you die, but you don't want to die. Dying is a massive setback in some way. You lose what's on your body, and that necessitates creating a system that's based more around having money and less around having these powerful weapons or whatever. If you've got money, then dying as a setback becomes a little less because you can spend money, get yourself a new revolver, get yourself a new horse, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't have money and you die, man, you're kind of screwed. You got to start from square one. You got to build up a little bit of cash. I like that about a game. It makes dying an impactful thing and it makes it something. But it also means that you have to be intensely aware of the ways that people could exploit that to make other people's like game experience really not good. I don't mind a game being tough. I don't mind a game rewarding being careful. But there's a balance, right? You got to let people play the game. You can't just have gangs of people waiting outside every newbie town or whatever, waiting to just absolutely destroy anybody that walks out. So I think the law enforcement mechanic really goes a long way to deterring that. If you're a law enforcement player, you get advancement by making sure that the town is safe for people to come and go to. So make sure there's no highwaymen just outside the town, and if there are, you go run them off. Yeah, a fantasy setting really does serve, or fantasy or a high tech sci fi setting really does serve an MMO because it lets you get around that permadeath thing. Right? Oh, you are resurrected by the crystal of Aranok or whatever. You feel slightly weaker. A Native American medicine man could bring you back. See, that's getting into a little bit of like territory where you're trying to make the Indians into this magic race. You don't want that, man. There was no magic. A medicine man could not resurrect somebody. And to be frank, there were no skinwalkers either. So, it's hard. It's really the sticking point for the Old West setting is like, how do you handle death? How do you handle when somebody shoots you in the head? What happens? You know, it would definitely be the make or break mechanic. Death mechanic in Sifu is pretty interesting. You level up as you die, but you age when you reach age 70 is the official game over. That's interesting, yeah. I mean, all the games that I've played that inspired this required a level of tolerance of loss. You really weren't going to enjoy Ultima if you were a person that, like, I'm never going to die. Nobody's ever going to get anything off of me, because you're going to get rolled eventually. You're going to lose the shit that's on you. And you really got to be a character, or a person that's okay with that. And part of that is deciding just exactly how punitive it is to die, etc. So that's the tough mechanic in this. You lose it all and start over in rags. Yeah, but I mean, like, people would just be so pissed. Think about you. You just spent like 80 hours of gameplay time building up a merchant, right? And you're just starting to see the fruits of that. You're just starting to get to the point where, like, you can load up a few things in your wagon, make a little money. You know what I mean? You've hired a couple of guys to protect your wagon or whatever, and then all of a sudden a big gang rolls up on you, shoots you in the head, takes your wagon, takes your mules, takes everything that you were transporting, and you have to start from square one. I mean, that's not... Most people probably aren't going to play that game very long. I think you have to sacrifice your identity. I think you get to transfer 80% of the skills that you had to a brand new character, but you have to sacrifice your connections and your identity. If you want to build up the same character, you've got to reach that again. You do get to keep the time sink of your skills, but you still have to spend the time rebuilding your little empire, whatever that was, rebuilding your name. See, this is where it gets complex, because like, modern voice over IP has made it to where you really can't stop people from coordinating in the background. Like, you really can't. And so even if you make a game where it's like people spawn in randomly at random places, and you have a naming system that, doesn't allow people to identify who they are, forces like a role-playing style name with a first and last name in the Old West or whatever, you're still going to have groups of people that go like, oh, I spawned over here, and then they all get together and they've got a distinct advantage over everybody else in the game. So this is one of the problems that have to be addressed. Like, it would have to be tackled at some point, because people, even within a system like this, if you can coordinate multiple groups of people in a way that doesn't make sense in the game world, you're going to have a distinct advantage over everybody playing the game. You're going to be able to engineer yourself into these positions of power in ways that don't include earning it through your deeds. You're just going to have way more muscle, way more firepower than everybody else. You're going to be able to game the system. So there's a lot of flaws to this game, and it's those flaws that kind of haunt me when it comes to thinking about this, because I really don't have a good answer. It's like, how do you handle that? I don't know. I think there are certain game systems that you could implement to kind of reduce the obvious benefit to having group of gamers outside of game communicating. Could mitigate it maybe a little, but I really don't know how you'd fight it. And I think it would end up ruining the game for people. It would end up turning it into, like, if I don't have a guild or whatever, or a gang, or I'm not the type of person that wants to sit in Discord and talk with hours with people that I don't know, then I can't really enjoy the game on most levels. And it would end up killing the game. So it's a big deal. Because ideally, you would have a game where the relationships that you make with people are entirely in game. You don't have any guild outside of the game. It's these relationships with people entirely in game. And if you die, there's just no way for you to like resurrect and find that person again. You know what I mean? You might keep some of your skills, but you're a totally different character, totally different face, totally different name. Maybe you have a game system where it's like that person's name changes to you or something, so that you can't go looking for Henry Caulfield or whatever, because Henry Caulfield's name to you is now John Smith or whatever. And maybe their character model changes, but just for you. So they look the same as they always have to everybody else, but if you had some kind of connection or business deal with them, then you can't tell what they look like, you don't know their name anymore. But that would all necessitate not having people communicate outside of the game. Which you can't stop. That whole system is made moot if you can just go like, hey, I'm John Smith now. Or I'm this, that, or the other thing. Or I'm standing right here by this light pole. Yeah, it would just undermine the whole kind of thing. Of kernel level specific applications. So you could do it like, so you're saying like, yeah, a certain programs prevent other, like anti-cheat programs prevent other programs from being run at the same time as the video game. I mean, that makes sense, but it just seems like something that people could get around by just having their phones. Like, all right, so the video game won't let you run Discord, but you've got Discord open on your phone. You know what I mean? Or you just do your Discord meetings while you're not playing the game and keep, you know what I mean? That just, there are just so many ways around it. People have so many different devices that they can do that on that it's not even really a hindrance. So ultimately, this game is, while it sounds fun, would require the kind of like participation of everybody in the game as it was meant to be played, and not metagaming, which you're never going to be able to convince people to do. If there's an opportunity to metagame a game, people are going to fucking do it, and they're going to do it so much and so constantly. I don't know why you're so barky out here today, but you need to shoosh.
Get one more chance, and then you're just not coming out the rest of the day.
Hey, come here. Quiet it down, bud. Quiet it down, shaggy dog.
Other dogs are allowed to exist.
Yes, and other people too can be out here. Other people can be here. It's their neighborhood. Hey, look at me. Hey. Calm down. Calm down. Lay down. Lay down. All the way. All the way. You stay.